Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. How are you
I
doing?
actually haven't seen you all day, so we're doing this on an evening
I know
episode.
it's weird. It's like Twilight.
It's okay.
I mean, it's just,
We're always up for the deep conversations about therapy and coaching, so mental
yeah.
health.
I mean, and I don't know. It would be inappropriate to be drinking alcohol. Well, first of all, it's a weeknight, so
We don't drink
we
during
don't
the week.
do
We
it.
don't
But
drink during
like,
the week.
I feel like at night, like it would stimulate
It's
an
usually my 18th
an
one.
interesting conversation if we were sitting here at night, right? Not so much.
Chilling
Yeah,
with a glass of wine.
it'd be just different.
Maybe.
All
Maybe
right.
we'd have looser lips, but
Well,
we'd sink our ships.
who's to say?
Okay. I don't think so.
Anyways,
Okay. Today we are talking about doing the work. Doing the work in your life, whether you be in therapy or in coaching.
ah,
Okay.
you had to quantify it because
It's a big one.
I thought
It's a
you were
big
going to
one.
go a different
It is
direction.
an important one. I talk about this all the time. And I thought, you know what? Like I always do with podcasts, like I'm going to talk about that on the podcast. So, speaking of doing the work, if you all are interested in working with me, I invite you to reach out. If you're interested in having me be your life coach and working with you on goals and issues that you have in your life, I've been doing this a long time. Reach out to me. I would love to get on a discovery call and see if we'd be a good fit and work with you. Okay. So please don't hesitate to think about that. I don't say that enough, but I coach throughout the world. So please don't hesitate. Um, let's work together. Okay.
Sounds good.
And as well, I have some slots open in therapy. You have to be in the state of Illinois where I'm licensed, but if you're, looking for a therapist, I invite you also to email me as well, and you can find all that information in the show notes and see if we'd be a good fit for one another. Okay. All right. So I talk all the time with clients about you got to do the work. And you've heard me say it on the podcast. You got to do the work. You got to do the work. Just like in anything else in life. If you want to be successful, if you want to grow, if you want to get shit done, you want to make accomplishments, you reach certain levels in your life, at work or in relationships, you got to do the work. And it's not fun. It's not easy. It's not always fun, right? And it's hard and you must do the work. And it's the same when it comes to growing in your interior world, in your inner life, in whether that be in therapy or maybe you're being coached. You got to do the work. You can't just, I have people who money is not an issue. They can pay the money, but they don't really want to do the work. So I would not be a good fit for that person because I want to hold you accountable. That's what you're paying for, really, with coaching. Is a lot of times, not all, a lot of times we are holding you accountable all the
Yeah.
time.
You might actually be a good fit for that person, right? They might just need a little extra motivation, a little
Right.
push,
Right. What?
you know?
Okay. So, and then we hit resistance. And so we hit resistance. This is more on coaching because therapy, it's a process. It's process work. It's process oriented. And I don't push my clients along the way I do in coaching. Coaching, people have paid for that and that's what they want. They're in coaching, they don't want therapy. So we go over this on a discovery call, or many people come to me. More and more these days, people do understand what coaching is about. And so, what they say they wanted at the beginning, they find at, session 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, like, oh, this is really hard. And of course, as always, each client is an individual. And as long as we're talking about it, when I get resistance, I'm going to be asking them about what is this that I'm feeling? I'm feeling you pushing back on me. And that's a conversation about what's the resistance right now. Therapy, I will also talk about resistance, but it's a little bit different. I'm not as I don't hold them accountable the way I do in coaching because therapy, we go at their pace. You always start with where the client's at. Now, I do that with coaching as well, but that's drilled into us. And that's how I operate as a therapist. I mean, if a client wants to spend, like we did the episode on trauma or, small t trauma, big T trauma, or life changing events in one's life. If a client wants and needs to spend weeks talking about this event, that's where they're at and that's what they need to do. and I'm going to let them do that.
Yeah.
If it's a year later, I am going to say, okay, I'm concerned that there's not this movement out of this. And I know them very well at this point, right? And so that's a conversation. Coaching is always more direct and a little bit more of a push from behind because we're not processing and spending session after session after session talking about how shitty their marriage is. All right, we're going to take action on that. Okay.
Because and it's also, I would think, a factor is time. Like because if you're coaching somebody that
It's time limited
you
for the
yeah,
most
and
part.
you've kind of like agreed that there's going to be 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever it
Yeah,
is.
or they'll sign up for, I know this could be a 3-month, 6-month,
Yeah.
2-year journey with you in coaching. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Okay.
I've been coached for years, years. It's unrealistic to think that when things are really hard that we're doing that I can just make changes in 3 months or in 9 months. It's no, it's gonna take years.
Right.
I was coached as a triathlete for years. It took years for me to get to the level that I was at. That was from being coached and from being disciplined. And let me tell you, I didn't feel like being disciplined. So I know how hard it is to do the work in psychotherapy and in life coaching. And I know how hard it is to do the work as an athlete. It's very similar, actually, what goes on in our heads, telling us,
Makes
"Don't do the
sense.
work. I don't feel
Yeah.
like doing it. I don't feel like getting up. I don't feel
Yeah.
like going for that run.
I'll do that
Yeah,
tomorrow.
I don't feel like having that conversation. I don't feel like spending time meditating or journaling. I don't feel like it." Okay. But it's really important to acknowledge that, you know, when you start to work with somebody in a therapy or a coaching space, that you can have all the knowledge. And that's great. So in the beginning, I'm teaching you. So my therapy clients, I'm much more interactive. You may know this if you've listened to me on the podcast. I'm a conversational person. I'm not old school psychodynamic. I do pull in psychodynamic theory, but I'm not just going to sit there and go, uh-huh, 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 and not say anything to you. It's a conversation. Always with the client in mind. It's they're paying for sessions for them, but I'm going to ask questions. I'm getting curious about you and your life and why this and why that and how come this and did you ever think about it that way? I do that with my therapy and coaching clients. It's one thing in the beginning, my clients are taking notes or gaining the knowledge. It's sometimes it's a didactic where I'm teaching about the mental skills and I'm pulling from the different therapies that I use with my therapy clients. I even pull them in with my coaching clients because coaches, they're trained in much the same way the therapists are. And so you can have all the knowledge, but having the knowledge and operationalizing it in your life does not, if you're not operationalizing it in your life, means you're not doing the work. And that's really, really important. So, you know, I have clients who they have the knowledge and they have the insight about themselves and why they do what they do and why they say what they say and why they think the way they do. And that can take a year. Some people can take 2 months, some people can take 2 years to just let that absorb, and they're learning all this new information, and their mind is exploding because it's like, "Wow, I didn't know my mind worked that way. I never thought about it like that. That's a really good insight." And they're getting these great insights, and they're loving the process and the relationship that I have with them because they're learning, learning, learning. So you're doing a certain level of work in the session because you're doing a lot of, learning, right? And you have this new knowledge. But I think that it's not enough for you to really make changes in your life. You have to put it into practice. And that was a conversation I had with a client this week about, so we have been working together for 3 years, and she said to me, "I am finally establishing boundaries or putting boundaries up with the people in my life that I know I've needed to for years." And, she did say, "It's because of my work with you, Anna. It's our work together that I finally am doing it." I mean, I was so proud of her. Like, wow. I mean, what a change in this person. What a transformation.
And she's a therapy client, correct?
She's a coaching client.
She's a coaching
Coaching
client.
client.
Okay,
And it's been
interesting.
3 years of working together. That's how hard this is, and it's hard work. That's why I've been coach for years and years and years and was in therapy for years and years and years. I mean, and I go back to therapy when I need it. Coaching is so important. I mean, it's so you can have this knowledge. like, okay, okay, I love to learn. I love to take notes and look at my notes, have my cute little my notebook and, I go through my notes. But I can and this is what I see clients can do. You can just sit with it. Okay, have us insight, have us knowledge. That's not enough.
Yeah.
You're not gonna have changes with your mother-in-law or your mother or your sister, or you're not gonna have changes in your business if you don't start, not just talking the talk or thinking the think, but walking the walk. You gotta walk the walk, and that's the hard part.
Right. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question. So I'm coming from a different angle on this one. So
Okay.
right, so coaching, you're a coach, I'm a coach. We're very different types of coaches, right? So with some of the people that I coach, there's such a thing as missing a workout or not doing your homework
Right.
or whatever, fill in the blank. So we don't come from the theory that you should chase a workout or chase a session,
Yeah, you don't
meaning
chase
we
workouts, right.
don't like double up the next time because
Right.
we missed yesterday.
Right.
So in your world, how does that go? So you give somebody homework one week and they come back and they just didn't do it. Like what, how
That's
does,
pretty common.
what's the process?
Well, I'm asking them, "What's going on? What's that about?" You said you wanted to do this work, why are you not doing it? You said, you paid the money, you're taking the time to be here with me, you know, it's not about me, it's all about them.
Yeah.
And, I absolutely, without judgment, throw grace and compassion, but there are some times that they need a little bit of a push, like, "Come on, you can do this."
Yeah.
And it usually is about fear or nervousness, about having to set that boundary when they haven't had a boundary with their dad for 35 years of their life. And now, or their either mother or, and now I have to establish a boundary or I've always been there for these couple of friends and they kind of verbal vomit on me. And I'm like their unpaid therapist and I don't want to do it anymore because I'm exhausted. And, well, it just happened again last week when you all went out. You didn't say one word
Mm,
and they, like, threw up on you verbally. And, "Well, yeah, that's my role. That's why I'm" No, 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 no. This is what you came for coaching was to we gotta set boundaries with these people. And, it takes so I'm challenging them. I'm there with them, but I'm always gonna be, challenging them, say, "Come on, you can do this. You can do this. So next time, what are you going to try to do different?"
yeah.
And that's what was happening with this person was, and to underscore the importance of time that not everybody can just, they sign up for coaching, they'll go to therapy, and it's like all of a sudden there's changes that take place. No, this is hard for people. I mean, change is hard and learning new habits, learning new ways of thinking, like I had just said, is so important and operationalizing it in our lives. It is hard. So I throw grace.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I'm kinda holding space for you and going, "Okay, but you gotta do it different next time as best you can."
Does it throw your process off? Like I'm imagining you have a progressive way that you're trying to get this affects this, which affects this for this client. And if they didn't do what they were supposed to do, then do you have to like rethink your kind of like your timeline with this person a little bit? Like how does that go?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. I mean, more with coaching clients who
Yeah.
have paid to get to a certain place, and they come into coaching, and what often happens is they realize, "Oh, this is a lot harder than I thought it was gonna be," and, "Oh, I when I wanted this, I thought I wanted it, and now I'm seeing that maybe I don't." And that's okay. I mean, sometimes we have to change goals because sometimes it's always about the client, right? And what's their life and what they want. So sometimes it's like, no, I actually don't really want to do that. All right, well, where I'm rewriting those goals for you, and I'm rewriting together with you, always in agreement with my client who's paying for the service to pivot, and we're gonna go in another direction because maybe what you said you wanted 2 months ago you don't want anymore, and that's okay. That's perfectly okay. It's up to what they want.
Yeah.
But if they say, "Yes, I still do want that," that's what I'm gonna, get on them about. Sometimes I'll say, I think it's the experience of someone who's been doing this a long time. It's hard for me sometimes on here to articulate how I work, and I'm thinking I need to do a better job of sharing that because I do think I've been in practice for 24 years. I've been in private practice. And throughout the 30 years of practicing as a therapist and a coach, a therapist for 30, coach for, 10 plus, I've been doing this a long time. This is not my first rodeo with my clients of today. So you take each person, I get to know them really well and I know what they can do and they can't do, or they tell me. And I it's like I always say on the podcast, it's so nuanced. And I think my gift from God or the universe is that I have a radar for people. My antennas are up and I can see in getting to know them what it is they might need or what they don't need. And I know how to ask the questions to get them to really think about their life in a different way. People say to me all the time, "That's a really good question. Oh, I never thought about it like that before." And that takes years of experience. But every boss I've ever had, every mentor I've ever had has said, "You're really good at the clinical skills." I mean, I think truly it is a gift. And I'm tooting my own horn here. I rarely do it, but I
Mm,
am going to toot my own horn
yeah,
because
why not?
I know I'm really good at what I do.
Yeah.
And I think it's a master's seasoned level therapist or coach that I am. And if, you're interested in working with someone like myself, reach out to me. I invite you to reach out to me. Um, let's get on a call together, see if I'd be a good fit for you. But, you know, if it's not me, whoever you work with in your state, I'm only licensed as a therapist in Illinois, in your state, ask those questions, vet your people, get with someone who you fit with. I think it's the balance of art and science. Like therapy and coaching is an art and a science. There's science behind, you know, the methodologies with which I work. There's also the art. It's the art of conversation. It's the art of getting to know person, deeply getting to know them and knowing how they tick, how they work, what their life experiences, how they think. So it's the combination of art and science and bringing it together. And those are seasoned clinicians that you're looking for. So personally, that's what I would want. And that's what I tell people no matter what you do, if you have to use insurance, it's okay for your psychotherapy because coaching is not covered by insurance. Vet your people. Take the time. I know it's a pain. I know it is a pain, but take the time. Call 3 or 4, email 3 or 4 different people. Try to get on the phone with them. Try to hear their voice. If they have openings, that's the problem today is so many people don't have openings. Try to get in with someone um, you're that you feel like there's a fit with over the phone, okay? It's more than an email, is my
Yeah,
personal opinion.
I would say.
You wanna talk on the phone with them,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But and then if after, like, first, second, third session of therapy, it doesn't work, don't go back, and if it's you paid for coaching, you're looking for a result, make sure you vet that and ask that coach, "What do I get for this money? Because you're paying out of pocket. What do I get for this? What are we gonna work on? What are the goals? How are you gonna help me reach my goals? What are your goals for me, and how are you gonna help me reach that end state? And basically, I always say, like, "What am I getting? What am I getting for this?" Okay?
yeah,
Really,
and I
really
would
important.
say I would add to that, if the coach doesn't ask you in the discovery call, "What is success?" How are we defining success with the next 6 week, 8 weeks, whatever it is? If that question isn't asked of you, move on,
Right.
right?
I always work from the end in mind.
Yes.
Work from the end. What does my client want when they're finished with me? When this package is up, where do they wanna be? That's very important for me. So, for you as a potential client, think about that for yourself. When I'm done with this person, I wanna be here,
Yeah.
and, I'm gonna try my damnedest
Yeah.
to get you
And
there.
that's gotta be clear at the
Yeah.
beginning, because if no one defines that at the beginning, then no one knows where we're going.
That's why you gotta do your work because
Yeah.
there's a lot of tinfoil hat and a lot of people out there who are, I'm sorry, it's more in the coaching space. It's not a regulated industry. So it's our job as citizens to do the homework because they're not licensed, the Department of Professional Regulation, any state, anybody can call themselves a coach.
Right.
So, and there are some really, really, really great coaches out there. You just gotta vet them.
Gotta find them.
Okay. I think, back to, it's so important that there's a misconception around, when you have awareness of yourself, you have awareness of this is how I argue with my spouse. This is how I fight. And I do this. It comes from my childhood. It comes from because this is what I saw my mom and dad do. It's from the very young ages. I've always been in sports and I saw my sports coaches in softball and basketball treated me this way. That's awareness, but that does not equate healing or growth on your part. So that's really important. I'm going to say that again. You can have awareness about, you know, patterns in your life and ways of behaving, why you behave the way you do because of, the way your mom and dad treated you, the way your sibling treated you, what you saw as a child, what you witnessed as a teenager. But that awareness does not equate your growth.
That's interesting.
Yeah. It doesn't equate healing. You
So
just have the knowledge. You got to take that next step now.
yes. So you
Yeah.
can be aware of an experience. You can imagine that it's taught you something, right? And you can believe that you're using that to better yourself now, but you might not be, is what you're saying.
Because you could have all the knowledge in the world. It doesn't mean you're making progress.
Right.
I don't see it as much in women. Actually, I see this more in men, intellectualization, is a defense mechanism. You can intellectualize the knowledge you have about why, and I'm going to be very stereotypical here. So throw me grace on this one, like why you're an asshole at work all the time, and you go to therapy and you have this knowledge that you've worked on with your therapist about why you're an asshole to people at work. It's because my father was an asshole to me and it's reaction formation and I don't know any other way. Well, you have the knowledge. It doesn't mean you've grown from it and that you've healed and you've stopped doing it. You could have knowledge like, oh, I know why I do this. You still do it. Like, I know I do this because of the way I grew up. Okay, well, stop doing it.
Yeah.
So the next phase is you've got to change your behavior.
Yeah.
That's the work. That's the work.
Right. 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 Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's important to me that the supplements I take are of the highest quality. And that's why for 5 years, I've been drinking AG1. Unlike many supplement brands, AG1 conducts relentless testing to set the standard for purity and potency. I know I can trust what's in every scoop of AG1 because it's tested for 950 contaminants and banned substances, while the industry standard typically only tests for 10. Taking care of my health shouldn't be complicated, and AG1 simplifies this by covering my nutritional basis and setting myself up for success in just 60 seconds. AG1's ingredients are heavily researched for efficacy and quality, and I love that every scoop also includes prebiotics, probiotics, and digestive enzymes for gut support. So if you want to replace your multivitamin and more, start with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1 year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first subscription at drinkag1.com/Anna. That's drinkag1.com/Anna. Check it out. You will not regret it. What is doing the work? So I'm going to give you a few examples, and um, this is in both fields. So how I work with my clients. So what is actually doing the work? It is confronting uncomfortable emotions, confronting them, not just saying, I know I have them. Well, you need to confront them and you need to work through, why you have this anger. And you need to change next time you feel that anger. What are you going to do different? That's different. Now you're in a different trajectory. Now you pivoted. You're coping differently than having outbursts of anger. That's you doing the work. Maybe it is. So it's practicing new behaviors. Like, I'm not going to whip my golf club across the green because I'm so pissed off because I get angry I'm so competitive with sports and I'm out with the guys or the gals or the group and I'm so angry that I throw my golf club across the green. I'm going to hit somebody.
Yeah.
Dude, chill. Like you got a problem with your anger. You go to coaching and you learn how to manage that anger. You do it different. You take a deep breath. You take 10 steps back. You walk off the green, acknowledge that you felt angry,
Yeah.
and you're going to work with that coach and maybe that therapist on what you're going to do different. That's where you're doing the work.
So the opposite of that would be the guy that goes through that whole scenario and says, "Oh man, I got to stop doing that." And then goes home and
Yes.
comes back tomorrow for another
Yep.
game of golf and the same thing happens, right? Like you
You're not doing
recognize
the
it.
work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you
There you
recognize it,
go.
you defined it, and that's it. That's where it stopped.
So you're at step one and
Barely.
and people can they stay stuck at step one and
Yeah.
haven't moved to step two. That's a great example, Tim. Like, oh, I got to stop doing that. So you're aware, you have awareness and knowledge,
Yeah.
but you're not changing your behavior. So this is about behavior activation and behavior change. So it might be setting boundaries is a really big one with people of we've learned I've taught you about boundaries, you know about boundaries, I've given you books to read, we've spent a lot of sessions talking about you setting boundaries and who you're going to set them with and who you'd like to set them with, who it's going to be, who are the people that really violate and overstep my boundaries all the time. And I know that this is hard. So I am making this simplistic. So Thanksgiving comes, I always use Thanksgiving because that's where we see extended family members or
It tends to show
yeah.
up
Yeah,
often,
it
right?
shows up. Yeah, because
It's
it shows up.
consistent.
Yeah, it does, it really does.
Yeah.
Um, and you say to me, last Thanksgiving, you say, like, in the last week in November or first week in December at your next session, "Oh, I just let them just totally rip into me about why I have the job I do." "Well, you didn't set those boundaries." I know, I have the knowledge, I know it's different." That's great, you've made it to step 1. So next time you see them, maybe at 4th of July, party, we're going to talk about what you're going to do different. And so we're going to talk about how you're going to change your behavior. And maybe you're going to walk away. Maybe you're going to say, put your hands up and say, I'm I I'm not open to hearing that input. Thank you, but I'm not interested in your input right now. That's you actually practicing behavior change and setting that boundary. And it's hard to do, especially with family members and extended family. It's
True.
hard to do.
True.
But that's when you're really making changes, and that's what happened with, a client in the last couple of weeks. In 3 years, and this person said, "I" and it was a text to, a family member, a distant family member who's like a really good friend, like a 3rd, 4th cousin, and this person loves this family member. But what happens is every time they get together, it's such a deep dive into that person's life. A deep dive, like my client said to me, I feel like I'm their therapist. And I feel like it's always very deep, it's very heavy. And whenever I leave those conversations, I realize that I have said maybe a minute or 2 of words, and 95% has been them talking. And at the very end, they're like, "But let's talk about you. How are you doing? I gotta go in about 5 minutes, but how are you doing?"
So speed it up.
So it's really all about them,
Yeah.
and the person said, "And I have been feeling like it's a lot. It's a lot, and it's heavy." And this person is in a season in their life where they've got kids in school, 3 kids in school, in sports, running around. This person works full time, and they said, "I just don't have the availability to listen to that anymore." She listened to it 4 years, and what she's done recently is she sent a text and said, I love talking to you. I I I don't have the availability to continue to meet with you if we're gonna talk in that way because it's exhausting to me.
Mm.
And I was so, so proud of her because she was saying that was such a difficult text to send, but I cannot keep meeting this person for coffee or for breakfast when they
Yeah.
just kind of verbally vomit on me, and I don't get anything out of it, and I'm just not available for that in my life right now because I'm my plate is full. My plate is full with my kids, with my boyfriend and my other girlfriends and my full-time job. And I just was like, damn, it took you. And we were talking about how it took her 3 years, but look at where she is. And she's like, you know what, Anna, it was the work that she did with me. And she said it was so, 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 so hard. And it was almost like by repeating over and me repeating over and over and over and over and over again to her about having boundaries, having boundaries. She's like, something just clicked. And I just set the boundary and set the text. I said, what did she say? She's like, she doesn't text me back. Well,
She's probably like this, like
she didn't
looking at
text
it like,
back because she
"What?"
yes, and
Yeah.
that's really important.
And
And
it
she set the boundary.
of
And
course.
here's what the thing is, us
Yeah.
people pleasers and us people who are really good at taking care of others and we're really good like friend counselors and listeners. We have a hard time setting those boundaries because we don't want people to be mad at us. So she finally ventured into taking care of herself, setting the boundary, and her biggest fear came true that she wouldn't respond to the text, and she hasn't responded now. It's been a few days. So now we learn to sit in that. We sit in the discomfort of knowing that you took care of yourself, but the other person may not like it. But that's okay. It's your mental health. You must take care of yourself. And we all need to learn to sit with that I'm making choices for myself. And it's okay if you don't like it. You don't have to like it.
They might not be on board with you.
I have to like it.
Yeah.
It's my life.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I have to like it.
Yeah.
I have to be okay with it.
Yeah.
So it's a huge, huge change. And this is someone who did the work, was doing little bits along the way. And here it is 3 years later. And she really, really made some changes. Okay. So that's a great example.
That's a great
Yeah.
example. So your other example of the whole Thanksgiving thing, right? You go and you realize that you should set boundaries because you get yourself in a bad spot, right? So the wrong way to do it then would be to go back at Christmas and not have done anything,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you're right back where you were 30 days later, basically.
And sometimes I think we just are in that space for a while.
Yeah.
It's like I think we get to a point where like, I'm not doing this one more time. I'm not doing this again. This happens every holiday season. I'm miserable. I hate it. Now I know I don't want to see that person, but there's like 10 other people I really do enjoy seeing. But what's happening is I want to totally avoid it. And avoidance is not dealing with your issues. That's important. You want to avoid it, but you're not tackling the issue. You're not doing the work of avoidance is not doing the work. Avoidance is avoidance. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the example of person dealing with knowing they have anger, knowing where it comes from because of how they were raised, how their father treated them. You can know it, but it doesn't mean you're going to stop throwing your clubs across the golf course when you have that anger. The change is you're going to do it different. You feel like throwing that golf club because that's your knee jerk reaction, but instead you're going to learn to respond because of the work you've been doing with your coach. And you're going to take a step, you're going to take a deep breath, and you're going to walk away from it. That's doing the work. Doing the work is establishing boundaries with family members and friends that I'm no longer available for you to just kind of monopolize the conversation and me be your unpaid counselor. I'm not doing that anymore. I don't have the time for that. I don't have the energy for that. It's a lot. And you saying, sending out a text saying, I can't do this. I love you. I love talking to you, but these conversations are too heavy for me. I'm not available for that anymore.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. So that's doing the work. It's really hard to do, especially the one about boundaries with other people. Right.
I think
But if you've got anger issues and that has felt comfortable for you, it can be really hard to change that anger.
yeah, true.
Right.
True.
Okay. So this is not just simply talking about the issues, but so not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. Okay. So, you know, ways that people avoid doing the work, some other examples are, staying in a loop of self analysis. And I'll admit I've been there because I love analysis. I love self analysis, but we get into a loop of like analyzing myself, thinking about why I did what I did, where that came from, kind of like the person who's aware of their anger and loses it on the golf course. Like, that's where that comes from. I know where that comes from. It's because of this. Well, because of this, because of that, and this dynamic and that dynamic. Well, okay, that's wonderful. You have that insight, but it doesn't mean you're making changes. These are avoidance tactics that we're using, and I've used those. Blaming others is another one. We blame others for why we are not doing the work. Um, it's too hard, or it's not really all my fault. It's their fault. And so, okay, but you still have to do the work to change your life. You'd be surprised that that's a tactic that people use to avoid. I'm going to blame other people for why I'm the
I
way
mean,
I am.
that one sounds like it'd be really common, I would think.
I see it more with younger people, younger individuals,
Okay.
teens and early 20s.
Yeah.
I see
Like
it
it
like
wasn't me.
numbers.
It's not all me.
It's them
It's a
too.
lot of you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're right. I do. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. It's the lifespan, but I do see it because I find myself in a gentle way calling out those people saying, "You're blaming other people, you're not taking responsibility for your own actions." Like, "Oh, I guess I'm not."
I don't see it that way.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what this is interesting. Sometimes I'll see this, someone who jumps from therapist to therapist or coach to coach because the person prior is trying to help them work on changing their behavior, but they don't really want to. They just wanna go to a therapist or they wanna just go to a life coach and they wanna talk about the problems, but they don't really wanna make behavior change. So, like what happened? And I have an antenna up for that too. I'm like, why are you here with me? Because I'm curious, like, what happened with that person that you're coming to me? And sometimes there are legitimate reasons, but sometimes it is because a person is avoiding you really doing the work. Okay.
What a
So,
tremendous waste of time,
well, but,
right?
it's subconscious in people. Yeah, they're not always I think people aren't really aware of that. I think that there's fear, there's nervousness about change.
Okay.
These are ways of thinking and patterns of behavior that have really been entrenched, ingrained with them for many people for decades, and they're not always
That's
aware.
fair.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
sometimes I'll point it out that you're is there a pattern here? What are you avoiding? Sometimes it's just what are you avoiding? What are you afraid of? And that's like right there can like, okay, well,
Mm,
let's sit with that. Let's
yeah.
sit with that for a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you, like, have moments where you just stop talking and you may in, like, there's an uncomfortable silence? Like, you identify something and the light bulb goes on for them, and you're like, "Let me just let you stew in that for
Well,
just
it's
a
not it
second."
used to be an uncomfortable silence in my earlier years of being
Yeah.
a therapist. Not anymore. I'm good with the silence. They could get uncomfortable, but
That's what I'm saying. For them, it's
yeah.
uncomfortable.
Well,
For you,
silence
you're like, "Good." You're like, "Let's just let them think
well,
about this for a
silence
minute."
is really important because it really gives the client a moment for a pause
Yeah.
and to reflect. You know, I think the most important thing in this conversation about doing the work is as a client, you must have psychological safety with your coach and your therapist. I really think so. I mean, I would, we always talk about psychological safety in therapy, but you have to have psychological safety with me as your life coach. You have to feel safe.
I would
You
think
have to
so.
feel like what is said here doesn't leave here, that I have fully trust this person and this person has my benefit at their heart.
Yeah.
This person is here to help me better myself. They want for me the best.
How long does that take to realize for a
It's different for
client?
everybody depending on their life experiences. Some people feel it pretty soon. I think most clients feel it pretty soon when they come to me. Some people, depending on their trauma, which we talked about in a previous episode, if they've got big trauma and they've got some real trust issues and betrayal issues, it can
Yeah.
take quite a while.
Okay.
I have had clients tell me things after year 4. Year 4. My client was with me for 10 years, and it wasn't till the 4th year that she told me some major, major life-changing things that had happened to her, events. I was like, "Oh my gosh, we've been seeing each other for 4 years. You just tell me that now?" We were kinda
You
laughing.
should have led with
Well,
that.
she told me in almost in a dissociative
Yeah.
way, and, I knew, I said, "I know, it took that long." And
Yeah.
she what she said? She goes, "Anna, I didn't wanna admit it to myself. It wasn't really about me, because I didn't wanna talk about it because it's me. I don't wanna bring it up. I don't wanna bring it was very comfortably nestled in my subconscious. And after all this time of working 4 years, she really felt safe with me. Then in that moment, she was able to allow it to come to the surface and come out, and she was able to say it.
Yeah.
But that for that person, took her that
It took
long.
a while. Yeah.
Yeah, it's different for everyone.
Yeah. I would think, like, for the listeners' benefit, like, as you're trying to connect with a coach or find a coach or a therapist, these are things that must be in your head as you ask questions of that person to decide if that's the person you want to work with, right? Because there's going to be some information that you're going to share that maybe you've never shared with anybody in your life,
Right.
right? And why would you, if you're not comfortable with that person and trust that person, why would you ever even consider that,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So you have to really vet that person. I think if I was looking for somebody like that,
Yep.
I would have a list of things that I would need answers to, like questions that I would go in with and be like, "Ooh,
I think you can tell on phone calls, sometimes on Zooms, but you can tell right away. I think people can tell right away if they like me or they think I'm a fit for them. I really do. I think there's something to eye contact. I think there's something to tone of voice.
yeah,
I could pretty much tell right away with therapists and coaches who I wanted to work with and who I liked, you know. But I'm going to say this. This is more for coaching. My therapist too. I mean, I have to like my therapist and I have to feel psychological safety with them. I've had coaches who I've paid to push me and I don't always like them. And their job isn't coaching is different. Their job isn't for me to air quote like them. Their job is to move my ass and make me do the work I say that I want to do. So that's where it's very different, therapy and coaching. So, when I go to a therapist, I want compassion, I want empathy, I want insight, I want knowledge. There I've had my therapists that resonate for me do gently prod me to make changes. But that's not always the main goal. The main goal is just what's going on this week, and we can sit and I can wallow if I want. My coaches have thrown me, of course, compassion and sympathy. They can be empathic, but they're like, all right, well, what are we working on this week? And did you work on what we talked about last week? Or maybe it's like, I need the next month to work on this. And so those sessions within that month are all about meeting that goal. And they're much more directive and they get on me, but I need that. I mean, I've had coaches say, Anna, get it done.
Yeah.
You're making excuses, get it done. And I love that. I need that in my
Well,
life.
that's why you're there.
That's why I'm there.
Yeah.
Right. But I think that when, for you, the listener, if you're watching this on YouTube, think about what it is that you not always what you want. Think about what you need. But if you're going to go with coaching, you have to be open to allowing that coach who gets to know you to put a fire under your butt and to push you to get it done. But you got to get it done. That's doing the work. If you do the work, you're going to have amazing results. You really are. I mean, you're going to have great results in your life, but you're going to do the work. I remember one time emailing this is my triathlon coach about something. I was a busy week. We had all the kids, and I was emailing her, almost looking for her to tell me it was okay that I didn't have to do 2 workouts that day or I didn't have to go for a run that night. And she just emailed me back and said, "Get it done." Oh, I'm so mad at her. So mad at her. 3 words, get it done. And that is a lot of how my business coaches, my life coaches, my triathlon coaches, they're not gonna take the time to air quote process why I feel the way I do. They're like, "Yeah, uh-huh. You're paying for me to coach you, get it done." And I've had oh man, I've had business coaches get on me and life coaches get on me about doing what you said you wanted to do. So get it done. Go. I'm like, okay, okay. And I get mad. Like, oh, you make me so mad.
Yeah.
But I'm
But that
always happy in the end.
and that coach probably, in your case, heard something along the way, or it was a story that you shared about yourself that they knew that you needed. There would be moments where
Well, you don't feel like
you
it.
were what that you were gonna need that push. You might not
Yeah.
feel like it, fine,
Because you don't feel
but
like it.
you, Anna, would lean towards, I'm just gonna get it done
I'm gonna
tomorrow.
phone it in
Yeah. So she
or not do
probably
it.
was like, "Uh-huh, I'm on to you. So go get it done."
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's what we pay for with coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's more action oriented. But it's but whether you be in therapy and that's process work or you be in coaching and that's goal oriented work, you still have to do the work no matter which path you go down. Or maybe you're in both. Maybe you're going to start with therapy, then you're going to go to coaching. You still have to do the work if you want to see changes in your life. Okay. So really important. I wanted to talk about this because this is something that I talk about all the time with my real life clients. All right. So hope that this was helpful. And please don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, rate and review. If you think that this is of value, please share it with someone in your life who could get something out of this episode. Um, write reviews. We so appreciate them. It helps us in the rankings with Apple. And I never realized the importance of writing reviews until I started podcasting myself. And I see that it really does make a difference. So we're moving up the charts and I'm thankful to all of you. Okay.
100%.
So, press those downloads and throw us some love. And please, if you want to reach out to me, if there's something you want me to talk about, I always say this, email me hello at Anna Marcolene and I will speak about what it is that you're grappling with or dealing with in your life. And if I don't know, I will look for somebody to come on the podcast to talk about what it is that you're dealing with in your life. All right, everyone.
Very good.
Okay. Mad love. Till next time.